Audible's romance collection has something to satisfy every side of you. When it comes to what kind of romance you're into, you don't have to choose just one. Fancy a dalliance with a duke, or maybe a steamy billionaire. You could find a book boyfriend in the city and another one tearing it up on the hockey field. And if nothing on this earth satisfies, you can always find love in another realm. Discover modern rom-coms from authors like Lily Chu and Ali Hazelwood, the latest romantasy series from Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros, plus Regency favorites like Bridgerton and Outlander. And of course, all the really steamy stuff. Your first great love story is free when you sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/Wondery. That's audible.com/Wondery.
How often should I publish blog posts for SEO? That's a question for the day. Search engine optimization isn't just about searching and optimizing and ranking and clicking. It's more than that. It's a lifestyle. It is a way of life. It is the way we do things. It's the way we find things. And how we find things is based on how we put things together. So today is your day, because I want you to leave this conversation knowing and understanding better ways on how you can actually improve your website by making sure that you have repeatable processes that will help you and your business grow, so that as you're also understanding how to use social media, how to rank on Google, on ChatGPT, on Microsoft, Bing, Perplexity, DeepSeek, anywhere that you want to be on, one of the major things to consider is to also think about how you're showing up online. Now, there are usually 3 levels to this, right? And I'll break it down real quick. There's a website, there's a web page, and there's a web link. Welcome, Boogie and Anish, and also Natasha. Thank you for being here. When you have a website, a web page, and a web link, those are 3 layers, kind of like if you think about a burger or a sandwich. They have to come together for it to be a sandwich, for it to be a burger, right? So the same thing applies when you're looking at it from a website standpoint, right? When you have a website, you have a website that is going to give you the full platter. Then you have a web page, right? A web page is going to give you the content of the website. Then there's a web link, which is going to give you access to the content of the website. If you're able to look at these 3 levels in a very systematic, structural way, then you should be fine. So the answer to the question of the day is, if you want to know how often should I publish blog posts for SEO purposes, the answer is to have between 1 to 2 per week. And that is if you're just starting out. If you're just starting a new website and you're building momentum and you don't want to do too much, great. At least once a week is okay. Because once a week means in a year, as a new business, you have 52 new links that are going to be showing up on your website. And imagine if each of these blog posts are ranking for a certain key phrase or a certain conversation, then the end result is going to be major for you. Because when you start answering questions that your customers are frequently asking the internet, and you show up on the internet for the right reasons and also for the right results, then you can also become the person attractive, and they can also find you reliable because you have content that people are looking for in real time, and they're also getting recent results because they're not coming from 3, 4, 5 years ago worth of content. So if you want to really see the effect of this as a business, 1 to 2 per week is great. Now, if you want to move just like a car, let me just give you this example because I love analogies. When you have a car and you have a stick shift, right? You're going to move from gear 1 to gear 2 to gear 3 to gear 4 to gear 5, right? Now, what I just said in the beginning was kind of like a gear 1 to gear 3 scenario where you're just posting 1 to 2 times a week on a frequent cycle basis and you're answering questions per article. So right now, if you're looking at this or listening to this, this is number 8 out of 52. So whatever I'm telling you, I'm doing. So if you're listening to this, I'm actually doing it. So it's not like I'm telling you what to do. That's not my place. What I'm here to do is to show you what I'm doing. So if you can repeat the same thing I'm doing, then great, you get the same result. If we work with you and you want to get the same result, that's fine. If you're going to do it on your own, that's fine too. But here you have the blueprint and you have to decide if you want to do it or you want to hire it out and get it done at the same result pace. Because at the end of the day, it's depending on how fast you want to get it done and how soon do you want to understand your audience. Because we can do customer audience management and all these things all day. But at the end of the day, the goal is to find out how can you actually drive the conversation home and how can you actually hit the message exactly where it needs to be received. Now, when you're sending messages like this, think about it from that gear 1 to gear 3, right? That means you're posting 1 to 2 times a week. Now, if you want the algorithm, if you want to drive fast, if you want to show up online, if you want SEO to really be a boost for you, then you want to post anywhere from 3 to 4 times a week. Remember I was saying it was 1 to 2 times a week initially? That's if you just want to get started as a business and you're doing it on your own, bootstrapping, you're a small business, you're probably a solopreneur or you're a freelancer, or you just want to do it yourself and you just want to understand what you're doing. That's totally fine. If you want to do that, at least aim to do 1 to 2 blogs per week. Now, before I move over to the second side, before I move over to gear 4, gear 5, within gear 1, 2, and 3, also keep in mind, when you're shifting gears, you're moving from gear 1 to 2 to 3, back to 2 to 3, back to 2 to 3, back to 2, back to 1, back to 3, back to 2. You're just, you're shifting. You're shifting gears. That's why it's called a stick shift. Now, if you use that same analogy and you translate that for SEO purposes with your blog, this means if I'm going to shift from gear 1 to gear 2, that means that I have created an article, let's say today is September 4th, 2025. Let's say I created an article September 4th, 2024. If I want to move from gear 1 to gear 2, that means I posted that early. Now, if I want to move from gear 4 to gear 5, it means that what I've created on my website allows me to go back and shift it again. And how do I know it's shifting? Because there are 2 dates you have for every blog. There's always going to be 2 dates. The first date is going to be the date you published your blog. And if you never do this second thing, you never have a second date. You always have a first date. Now, just like you meet somebody in person, you want to have a first date, you want to have a second date, you want to have a third date, a fourth date. The more dates you're on, the more you get to understand this person. So if you use that same analogy for your website, the more you update your website, the more Google and the other search engines like ChatGPT, AI, Alexa, Bing, wherever they are, they will now find you responsible, relatable, and of course, acceptable, because you have a last modified, which is the second date, which is something that most websites don't have. And you have last published and you have last modified. It means you have the first published and you have the last updated. Now, when you have those 2 dates, that allows you to now show up online faster, because when you're hearing how often should I publish my blog post for SEO, the first thing is before you update, you need to publish. Before you publish, you need to process. And what are you processing? Keywords, topics, content, pillars. Frequently asked questions, things that people are going to ask you one day when they show up for you or when you show up for them. Now, it's a two-way street. It's not a one-way street because business is a two-way conversation. You don't do business by yourself. So when you create impact with people, the goal is to make sure that the people that you're learning from or working with are going to get the right response. So if I'm doing 1 to 2 per week and I'm starting out and person B is doing 3 to 4 per week and they're building it, then that's going to be something for you to also do. Your business is going to take the next leap, is going to jump to the next section, is going to be able to have a much better response because that 1-2 blogs that you did last week could still be blogs that people can find next week, next year, next decade. That can happen. But the only way you can show up as a last modified is if you previously modify your first post. So if I modify something today, I modified it tomorrow, modify it again the next week, that's getting somebody updated on what I'm doing. I don't have to say it over and over again. Best practice is do it monthly if you have to do it at all. But another best practice is to do it quarterly. So if you're creating content and you're thinking, okay, how often should I publish my blog post for SEO? First publish it, then update it. When you first publish it, let's say you have 4 articles. Let's do the bare minimum. 4 articles in a month means that you posted once a week. You published once a week. Now, the next question is, when can I update this article? If you want to update this article, the next time you want to update this article could be 2 options. It could be in the next quarter or it could be in the next year. Now, why am I saying this? Because it's going to start getting cumbersome. It's going to start getting intense. It's going to start getting to the point where the volume is increasing because the more articles you write, the more articles you have to update. That's why I'm giving you the bare minimum right now with 4. So let's say in a 3-month cycle, you've had 12 articles. Now, the question now is, when am I going to update these next 12 articles? When you have 52 articles in total in a year, and now you're dealing with the first 12 in the first quarter or the next quarter, then what you're looking out for is to ask yourself, if somebody is going to be searching for this content in September 2026, let's say September 4th, 2026, God willing, right? By this time next year, whatever you wrote today that is of essence, that is of importance, that is essential, that is a need from your customer or from your prospect or who is consuming your content is going to look for the same thing next year around the same time. So when you update your article September 4th, 2026. If you first published it September 4th, 2025. So if you updated your article September 4th, 2025, because you first published it September 4th, 2024, it's because you had a full year cycle to update the same thing. And how do you update? You update it with listicles, with FAQs, with recent statistics, maybe 2025 statistics, and you had 2024. Maybe you want to add more questions, or you want to answer more, you maybe a use case study, or you want to put a quote, or you want to put a video, a YouTube video, or a reel. The choice is yours. There's so many options. When you do this and you update your articles are now being seen on Google because you first connected your website to Google Search Console, to Google Analytics, which is not the same as Search Console, but they both have to be connected. Google Tag Manager, which is another thing. And then you also have Microsoft Bing, which is going to be for Microsoft purposes. When you now connect all these things together, especially the consoles from Microsoft and Google, that allows you to now show up on Google Search Console. And then because you have a sitemap, which is the brain of a website, which is the engine of a website, then that now becomes the anchor that you use to move from gear 4 to gear 5, because now you're creating content consistently and Google understands you. The more dates you get into, the more dates you go on, the more you get to know that person. So the more you update your content, the more Google understands what you're talking about and who you really are. So that's how you're able to really decipher how to do it. So if you're a new website, if you're a new business, 1 to 2 times. If you're an established business, 3 to 4 times a week. That's the answer to today's question. I hope this helped you as well. If you have any questions, we have about 11 minutes before we wrap this up. But please, if you have any questions, put it in the chat or raise your hand and we'll talk about it. Hey, John, glad to have you here. What are your thoughts on the topic today?
Good to be here with you too. I just thought you just opened this room a few minutes ago. I'm working on actually a blog article. I did one yesterday, one today, and then I have others. So I'm trying to do one, if not two a week, and I'm looking at some of my competition's websites and what search terms they're getting the most searches for, and I'm trying to write articles around that. So love to hear your strategy. I heard you say established websites. I've been around since, my website, 2020 maybe. So it's, or 2021. So it's established. I try to do one a week, so it's 4 months.
I love that. One a week is perfect because the more you're able to show up and you have new content, the faster you're able to grow because it's like compounding interest. Think about it like seeds. The more seeds you plant in the field, the more you start seeing crops, you start seeing germination, you start seeing plantation, you start seeing trees, you start seeing fruits, you start seeing things that actually show up online. It's like, oh, wow, look at this cherry blossom tree because we were able to build it over time. So if you look at the same thing like your website and your weekly depositing content that is within your intellectual property, then over time you're going to gain that because someone's going to read it somewhere and they're going to connect with it. So that's why it's not just best if you create a blog and leave it on your website. That's a bad practice. Good practice is you create a blog, you send it to your email list, you send it, or you create a video on YouTube or TikTok and talk about it. You put it on X, you put it on Reddit, you put it somewhere on Pinterest. You place it in a position that it can be seen so that more people can find it when they're looking for it. You put it on Threads, right? You put them available to the public. And what are you doing that at this point? You have search and you have social. So when you have search, people are Google searching for things. People are ChatGPT searching for things. And gone are the days when people are searching with keywords. People are searching with queries. People are searching with questions. So the more answers and the more responses you get to those queries and questions that you get in form of an article that is in form of a web link, then that link now becomes a leading tool for you to grow. Anything you see that's ranking right now on Google, on ChatGPT, it's because of a link. And because that link is connected to a domain. And it's because that domain has content. So the more you're able to have more content, the more you're able to have more responses. So let me say it this way too. You don't have to do it the way I'm saying. You can do it the way you want. There are no rules. But if you want to have steady growth, that is a standard way of doing it. Some companies I've seen, some huge companies I've seen how they publish articles, they can publish 3 a day. You'll see the date stamp. It will say September 4th, September 4th, September 4th, 3 articles in the same day. Then they'll do that 3 times over. And then they'll probably do that throughout the week. So imagine 3 times 5 in 1 week. That's 15 times 4. That's 60. The more articles you have that create more interactions with people, meaning that they have more videos, photos, tables, infographics, podcasts, and interviews, or even like episodes, you're seeing things that people can actually binge on or binge to. It's beautiful to see that because your blogs now become the cornerstone. We're doing this for a client right now where she was like way below 1,000 downloads, like almost halfway below 1,000 downloads. And we looked at her graph and said, okay, by this time last year, you had about a little bit over 500 downloads, maybe around 600 or so. And we said, okay, let's look at the year-over-year graph. And we've been working together for about 4 months now. And I said, okay, let's make sure that by the time we're looking at this graph, by this past time, then we should at least be 10 times further. And I was like, okay, let's figure it out. What are we going to do? You have a website, you have content. Now we're also managing your Pinterest. So we're pushing Pinterest content from blogs off a website that's getting you traffic that's improving your downloads. It's kind of like that trifecta or that, 3 spin wheel, if I can call it like that. Now, what we did is we put it on Pinterest, from Pinterest to the website, from the website back to the podcast. Now, if somebody has X number of podcast episodes, but you don't have X number of blogs, then they both X out. So what I decided to do was say that every episode is going to have its own corresponding blog. And every blog is going to show up on Google, and every Google post is going to show up within the servers. So we did that consistently. We're not done yet. We still keep going. And right now she has over 3,000 downloads. So around this time last year, she had less than 1,000 downloads. And now around this time this year, she has over 3,000 downloads. By this time next year, she should be at least around anywhere from 5 to 30,000 downloads, which is very possible. So now every year you're supposed to add a zero to that bottom line. And how you're doing that is based on the work and the input that you give. So when you have an article, knowing that an article has a lifespan of 24 months, that's 2 years. And every time you hit publish, or anytime you hit refresh, or anytime you hit update, and it now refreshes the cycle or refreshes the algorithm, you have reset another 24 months ahead of time. So that 24-month cycle decays when you don't update your content. That's why it's called content decay, because other blogs are writing about the same thing you wrote about, but you're not showing up because there's more recent information about the same thing you wrote about X number of months ago. So when you're able to now update that and say, okay, every quarter I can update it, give it time, because that article that you write today will still be seen tomorrow, will still be seen next year, but you have to create the atmosphere for people to find it. And that's how you're able to use it consistently. So don't just write articles because you have an article to write. There's also a way to write articles. It's not just copy and pasting from ChatGPT. That's not going to work. What's going to help you get to the top is when you create a structure, because what you're getting from ChatGPT, I'll be honest with you, is called unstructured data. If you've never heard of it before, check it out. It's called unstructured data because you're just getting a response. You're getting what you asked for. You say, hey, give me this, and you got that. So when you get that information, the next thing is to turn that into structured data. How do you know it's structured data? You have headings, you have titles, you have metadata, you have schema, you have pointers, you have internal links, external links, images, alt text, alternative text. These are the things that will guarantee you that your blog is going to show up on these search engines. Because when search engines are consuming content, you're reading the text, they're reading the script. I'll say that again. You're reading the text, they're reading the script. In other words, you're reading the HTML, hypertext markup language. They're reading the script, XML, which is expandable markup language. So those are two different types of codes we're talking about, but it's split into two. So if you're writing content for the algorithm, so that the algorithm can rank you within the search terms that people are finding you or supposed to find you, then you need to create content that they can use to actually link them back to you. So if I'm looking for the best recipe to make this or that, it's because you're showing up for that result based on the search that you actually did research on. So you can't just show up online because you're showing up. And it's not about first place, second place, third place. And I'll actually let you know this now. ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Grok, Meta AI, there are many of them, Cloud, Perplexity, all these platforms, they scan the first 20 results on Google. If you've never heard this before, this is the first time you're hearing it, this is something to take note. They rank the first 20 results. So they're not looking for who's number one, number two, number three. They're looking for who's most relevant, who's most recent, and who's most practical. That's why Google has this code called EEAT. It stands for expertise, or rather experience, expertise, authority, and trust. If I don't trust you, I won't click it. If I can't click it, I won't know what's behind the click. So the goal is to make sure that as you're writing articles, as you're building businesses, everywhere you go online, you need to also think about the structure of your website, because don't just have a home, about, contact, and request booking. That's not going to take you anywhere, because in today's world, people want information, people want content, people want to understand why. And the more you're able to tell them why and make it clear, the better it is for you, the better it is for your business. And the more you show up online and you're earning impressions on these search engines, the more you have to also show up for them, which means the less you also spend money on advertising. So if you're spending a lot of advertising money to get the same result you could have gotten organically, if you flip that script, you could actually be saving more over time. But a lot of businesses are doing well because they're spending money on ads. Right now, Apple is spending money on ads because the flagship is dropping this September, right? So if you're looking at ads and where they're spending the most budget, think about the platforms. One of the platforms I always talk about is Pinterest. We're running zip code ads on Pinterest because when you run zip code ads with the same budget, you'd be spending $2 a click and I'll be spending 2 cents a click for the same amount of people you're reaching. Not because the platform is janky, it's just because the focus is more specific, it's meticulous, and it's right spot on to the people that actually are looking for you based on data. So if you look at your reports, you have a website, your website should tell you the last 30 days, blah, 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 blah. This person came here, this person came here, came with this device, came with that device, or came with this or that. By the time you realize that the people that are looking on your website are actually coming from specific locations, that's where you now focus on retargeting. Because when you do retargeting campaigns, you actually spend less money and make more conversions because you spend more money reaching out to them as a cold audience the first time you were doing a brand awareness campaign. So I won't go too deep into that. But if you want to show up online in today's world, in the digital era we're in, blog posts, articles, however you want to name them, I just call them web links. Those links need to show up on your website in form of text, audio, or video. And when those three can come together, you can really show up online because you can build uniform resource locators, which is another way of saying URLs. And those resource locators will find the uniform based on the search term because we search by filters. So if I'm searching for baking recipes, I'm not going to get baking cake. I'm going to get baking recipes because the recipes is going to give me the cake. If I'm looking for baking cake, I'm going to get types of cakes that have been baked. So the semantics have to make sense so we can also validate the search and also validate the routine. So if this helped you, if this gave you some clarity, please put a 1 in the chat. I'd love to know this. And as you're doing that, John, what would you say as a final thoughts for people that want to know how to do this better? I'm checking the chat.
Here's what I would say. So, and you made a great point when you said that every podcast episode is a blog post. It's a web post, and it's going to cause the search engines to re-spider your content. And possibly you might have an episode that's going to really resonate keyword-wise and get in front of a big audience and get some spillover with other episodes. So, but when you have the audio, which is the blog, video, and also do not ignore blog posts or just text. We say this all the time and it's oversimplified, but HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. And all of these search engines, they spider based off text. There's other things they do as well, but that's a valuable source of traffic that you're not getting at. And some of the biggest players in the world, they're using SEO and they're using social media. And they're putting out a post every 15 minutes with a link to an article they wrote. So part of your revenue is based off of ad exposure from companies like Google AdSense. You want to examine SEO for sure and up your game on a blog post. And here's a little power tip I use. I think it's great you said AI. I never use AI tools to create content. However, what I'll do is I'll get the content, I'll post it into Notepad, and I'll go to ChatGPT, for example, or Meta AI, and I'll say, rewrite this as a lifestyle blog post in the third person with quotes. And then I put attributions among sources in there, and it structures it perfectly. Same with ChatGPT. However, when you use it to create content, I believe you're actually shooting yourself in the foot because it's getting the same content from elsewhere. And if you're not rewriting it, you're going to get penalized by the big players. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, that is so true. When you start citing or start regurgitating content, Google actually debunks your website. It actually sounds like this, and it's not good for your health. It's not good for your website health, and you want to make sure you want to stay away from that. So thank you so much for that, John. It's so true. When you have links, these links are active links, and these links say a lot about your business. So when you send out emails, you're not just sending out emails, you're sending out IP addresses, you're sending out technical advances, you're sending out different things. So it's going to be a big deal for you right now when you're thinking about the people you're connecting with, and also making sure that they are safe. They're safe. Like, I don't know if you guys are checking the news, but today there was something about TransUnion and the breach that happened. So if you now think about data intelligence, think about all these things, you do your research, you're realizing, oh wow, okay, these things are happening, but what am I supposed to do? How do I control my data? How am I able to know these things? Because they're happening. We know what happened last year. Was it last year when the flights and things got shut down because of what happened with the malware, function? When you think about all these things with tech, these things happen. Facebook has gone down before. There's a time you were not on TikTok for at least a few hours. You've seen these things happen. So when you just think about your website, your traffic, where AI is coming from, where it's going to, and you still showing up for the same thing every year, if your business is a long-term planning business and you established your business at a point in time that you know that you're either going to have this business scale, or you're going to sell it, or whatever you're going to do with your business, that information that you're putting in there is actually intellectual property. So if you really think about the business and you say, what is the worth of my business? If I was to sell my website today, it's not just my domain, it's what's within the domain. It's like saying when you sell a house, you're selling a house plus what you've done to the house. Whether it's furniture, paint, whatever it is going to add value to what you've already built. So when you're adding content on your website, you're adding value to what you've paid for already, which is your domain. The more you're able to attribute your domain to more topics, the more people can find you because you have more wider spaces. That's why TV is television, because there was a lot of channels. People could have different interests, but you just have to buy one TV to get all the channels. So if you have one website, you can get a lot of topics because you're tackling different channels, you're tackling different challenges, you're tackling different questions. If this don't make sense, I don't know what will. But I'm glad that this question has been talked about, and I hope you've learned something new. I'll be back again with another question like this. The next question I'm going to be talking about is SEO dead in 2025? We're going to break that down. So thank you so much for being here, John, Shay, Ruth, Soma, H, Ola. Thank you so much for being here. Prasanth, Somya, hope I said it correctly. Dr. S, Brian, appreciate you for being here too. Good to have you as well, being here as well with us. Comedian Miss TZ, or Miss T, I hope I said it correctly. And Liverpool's finest. I'm just rhyming over here. So I hope you all had a wonderful time here. Appreciate you all. And I hope this gave you some insight, some foresight, some hindsight, some type of sight, some type of insight that's going to help you understand what you need to do next as a business. But definitely we'll be back again here with you again. So Somia, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you so much for these insights. Yes, I hope these insights helped you, because the more you're able to realize these things, the more you're able to take action as well. So I'm about to jump into a call, but I want to make sure I can, stay here and stay connected with you. So if you have any questions, reach out to me. My profile is here. Replays are on. Tap on my face, connect to me on LinkedIn or anywhere you'd like to connect. Even listen to the podcast called We Don't Play. It's called We Don't Play Podcast.com. Feel free to be here. You're welcome, Prasanth. I hope I said it correctly. I want to make sure I said the names right. And hope you all have a blessed and happy week. I'm going to see you guys here tomorrow. And I think lunchtime is a good time to be here sometimes. So it's not too early, it's not too late. And we're an international audience too. So take care, everyone. God bless you. And I'm going to see you guys in the next episode. Now, that was an episode, right? Thank you so much for listening to the We Don't Play podcast show. I'm so glad that you're here and you are sticking tight with us, especially to the very end. Now, this is season 11 and we're going to do it differently. And I want to make sure that every episode you listen to has something to give back so that you can also learn more after you listen. Now, We Don't Play podcast show is where you listen, you live, you learn, and you earn. So if you're in any of those positions out of those four, please make sure that you reach out to me. Send out an email through info@playinc.online. That's info@playinc.online. Or you could go to playinc.online, which is a website www.playinc.online, PLAYINC.online, and schedule a call so that we can get you on an SEO discovery call to talk about your business and help you with your marketing needs. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope this helped you. See you in the next episode. God bless you. Jesus loves you. Bye.